Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Not Content Podcast. My name is Jerome Cuson, joined as always by Brian. Please leave a 4 or 5 star review so as to help people discover this show. Get those algorithms going on Apple and Spotify. In addition, you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Click the bell icon for notifications. This week, we are continuing our trip down Mockumentary Road, and we are stopping in lovely England this week as we are talking about Rob Reiner's first movie and his last movie, both of which have to do with a popular question mark band, Spinal Tap. As we are going to be discussing, this is Spinal Tap, his first movie made all the way back in 1984, and his last movie, this is Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues, which came out just last year in 2025. I don't know, Brian. It seems like everybody needed a little bit of a cash infusion there in 2025. That's why we got a sequel. I don't know.
Well, you know me, Mr. Legacy sequel apologist or
You are a
enthusiast.
legacy sequel apologist. That is
Enthusiast is also
100%
meaning
the
the
case.
same thing. Enthusiast means the same thing, I believe, right?
I think more apologist with some of his
Okay. Well, we all
sequels.
love Creed, right? We love Creed 2015, right? Like at
Look,
least
there are absolutely some very good
we can
legacy
hug
sequels that have
around
been
that one.
done.
Yes.
I mean, look, I think Creed is incredible. Obviously, Ryan Coogler finally won an Academy Award, as did Michael B. Jordan. I mean, it wasn't for Creed, but it feels like that was a continuation of their path towards getting to the Oscars this year. So I have a genuine affection for that movie and what that franchise has become. I think the first Spinal Tap is a prototype of the Christopher Guest kind of model, and I think that in so many ways I think it's a little rough. Um, yeah, it's I just for me ultimately where I come down is I think that the mockumentary form for me just seems to work better on TV than it does in movies. And I don't necessarily know why that's the case. I think part of it has to do with being able to develop the characters and really to dive deeper into some of the plot lines. I think this is Spinal Tap is entertaining in its own right, but for me, I honestly prefer the Christopher Guest ones that we've discussed this month.
Wow, because like Spinal Tap to me is like a classic, and it's considered like this all-time classic. And I'm
It
one of
is.
those
So
people
I
that
know
buy into
I
it.
know I'm in the minority on this for sure.
Yeah, and I buy into it because of it's not just the comedy stuff. Like I'm a rock fan, right? And for that era of 1981, it's a good portrait of what rock was going to become. So that's also what I love about this movie. It's on the cusp, right? Because like I would say like 84, the launch of MTV, rock completely changed with with the visual styles, right? I mean, you had Kiss before in the 70s, but they weren't like TV, like music video kind of like they were ready for that time, but there weren't music videos back then. There were some. But once MTV hit, everything changed, right? And so this is kind of a portrait of what rock was right before that, and you get like this vision of like a band struggling because they had their past glory already, and then they're finding new glory in like European markets, Japanese markets. We've seen this in wrestling. When there's a downturn in the United States, what happens? The international market starts booming, and that's what happens at the end of Spinal Tap. So I love that kind of like contrast and kind of like comparability to audiences and their waning audiences and their popularity, and it compares to like sports franchises, like I kind of compare those things. You know what I'm saying? I see these parallels, these ups and downs that franchises have, and this band has that. So that's why I'm really like, it's every time I watch this, I find these new details about the original Spinal Tap. You know what I mean? And I love the fact that it's 16 millimeter, right? So it's got this old feel, but it's not like a movie feel. It's like old like camera footage that you found, right? Like I love that feel to it, which I think kind of lacks in the second one, which we'll get to, because it went all digital, and I think it needed that like maybe 35 millimeter kind of look to it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh boy, do I have thoughts? I mean, I just have thoughts in general. Like every time I watch a movie
Well,
from
we'll
the
get to
80s
that,
and
but
90s,
this is 16 millimeter, folks, so it's
I
not even
just
like supposed to look good.
this is more of a general thought. This isn't comparing the sequels. I'm just talking about movies from the 80s and 90s just look better now because I just don't think digital looks as good. I mean, I think that look, there's still some very good looking movies. I would say Sinners, One Battle After Another, they still look really good. But I mean, you take the average movie, especially the movies that are on streaming, they don't look good. They look digital and they look fake, and it's not great. But I think this movie, like in terms of the look, this captures the look that you want, in my opinion. So I very much appreciated just how the composition looks, and it's funny to see just how young everybody is as well. Like Christopher Guest, like we've talked about a number of his movies, but I mean, this is a decade before a lot of those movies, and you just to see how young they are. Rob Reiner's still bald though. Rob Reiner lost his hair early and just couldn't follow up, huh?
I feel bad for the guy because he just looks like he aged quickly at the end of the '70s and kind of stayed that way up until like the
I mean, there are
2000s.
advantages to looking like you're 45 no matter what.
Arn Anderson, right? We get it, the Arn Anderson effect. But it adds to the promos a little bit. But it did add to like it made it seem like the filmmaker was much more sophisticated and older, even though Rob Reiner was what in his 40s. It looked like he was in like almost 60s because of his like gruff, scruffy look. So it kind of added to the mythos of what he's because he's not playing himself; he's playing a director, right? So you got to give him like that kind of like split right there. So the director he is playing is like this like probably known director that is probably known for like documentaries and stuff. The way he approaches the subjects and the interviews and stuff. So I like it's like it's a different. It's not Rob Reiner. It's a totally different person, and the way he portrays himself is like almost like a Scorsese with the eyepiece around his neck and the hat, and it's like this thing about directors wearing hats all the time. It's like why is it that '80s, '70s
And he
directors are
brings that
always
head
wearing a
back
baseball
as
hat?
well. That's the amazing
Yeah,
thing.
that's I
It,
love that part.
it's
But
tremendous stuff.
yeah. And the cameos and stuff is great. I mean, we saw Billy Crystal in the background for some, I forget why at a party. Fran Drescher is like trying to defend, or like she's trying to defend the band, but she can't like defend the fact that that Smell the Glove cover is like so offensive, which it is. Um, just stuff like that, and like the controversies of like album covers now, it's like not as bad. I think it's like it was so bad back then, but because like everything is so digital now, it's like you don't have to really rely on like the visual cover of your artwork to get people to buy your album. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like it's all about the visual video now. So
I
like
mean,
that
it's
is like such
amazing.
an ancient
Just,
thing.
I mean, you see the changes in both the movie industry, the music industry, the way documentaries are done. Like, it's really fascinating to me how both of these movies are so much product of their time. And obviously, the fact that they're so much older in the 2025 one, like, you definitely can feel that. But like with this movie, it definitely has its moments. It definitely has some good laughs in it. I think what makes this movie work, though, is just the chemistry between Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, and Harry Shearer. I mean, they do have a writing credit on this movie, and they also have a writing credit on the second movie as well. So they do have that credibility, and I mean, I think they did a really good job of just portraying like actual bandmates, and you actually feel like plausibly this could be a band.
Yeah, and they're very much doing the Paul McCartney, John Lennon thing, which you got to like really pay attention to those things to kind of like
I
as a
mean,
music fan to see that.
I mean, at this point, the Beatles are still relatively fresh in people's mind. Like I know that
Yeah,
15 years since the breakup, but like
but it's kind
you
of the
know,
easier narrative to take when you're like putting a band together. Like it's easier to
yes,
do the Paul and John type story. You know what I mean? Because it's always going to be like this collaboration of two artists and they're going head to head. And you love that dynamic to see on screen, right? So it works for this movie. And to be honest, I think the Christopher Guest character, I forget his name, Nigel, I think. I think he's like the more talented musician and
I think
writer, I think.
that's the way it was written is that he is.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like the charm of it, like you know what I mean? Because that's kind of the dynamic of McCartney and Lennon. Like people, I think favor McCartney in terms of like his song styles. The deeper lyrics you're going to get John Lennon, and I think that's kind of the contrast they give with these two characters here with Michael McKean as well. Like he's talented as on his own right, but it just seems like they kind of have to stick together, right? And I love that glue metaphor later on in the second movie, but I like how they have to stick together to get the best out of themselves, right? Because when they separate, they're not good, and I think that's very key. Because like some bands think that I'm going to break from my group, I'm going to do my own thing, and I'm big and big. We saw that in Bohemian Rhapsody. That did not work for Freddie Mercury, folks. Like no one listens to Freddie Mercury solo shit. Like it is like not a thing. You know what I'm saying? So it just doesn't work for some people. So that was they were kind of aiming for that, and by the ending, it's like yeah, they needed to get back together because like I mean, they had this experimental show without Nigel, and it was just like the worst fucking thing. And they show that, and the crowd is like booing him to death. And I've been there, folks, where like wrestlers experiment in the ring at indie shows, and sometimes it just doesn't fly. aka the Daniel Bryan headlock on Claudio for like 20 minutes, which pissed off Super Dragon.
Oh
You know what I mean? It's like
man,
something like that.
that was a thing. Yeah, that's absolutely a thing.
So
And
yeah, and they get back together, thank God. But it's just the journey, you know what I mean, and the fact, like I mentioned, the international tour brings them back together because, like, when your domestic's down, sometimes it means your international goes up, and that exactly what happened. So,
a
um,
lot of American bands went to Japan and found success as well.
yeah, and that's the
I
thing.
do
That
want
was
to
like a
point
lot
that
of
out.
'80s bands went through that level
I mean,
because, like,
isn't that where Fozzy found their success
I
too?
think it is like in Europe. I think they're big in Europe. It's like it's weird. Like metal like bands tend to do better internationally. Like that's what it tends to be like. Have you ever seen Metallica play in Mexico? They're like gods over there. You know what I'm saying? Especially in South America. Like I don't know what it is, but like internationally, metal just like you know hits a chord with people. And the thing about this movie is that they're not really like a metal band. They're portraying a metal band, but they're really like rooted in blues, right? So I think that's a different kind of take on it as well. And you can kind of see they're really talented, but they don't have to go
You
into
can
the
see
blues so
that.
much,
I can
or
definitely
the
see
metal part so much. So, and my brother like put it well. I think they're more like he says they're more like prog rock or progress rock, right? For that era
I
more
can see
so
that. Yeah,
than like
I don't
metal.
think
Because
they're
there's
not in
bands
that
that like a
vein.
Deep Purple, right? Deep Purple is like they can sound like heavy metal. They're the theme song for the Triple Threat in ECW, but they like to do some psychedelic shit, right, with their rock and roll. So they experiment. So that's kind of where I see Spinal Tap is this kind of like gray area. But I gotta admit, like that thing about the Stonehenge, um, I used that clip in my European project in 12th grade, and I got an A. But it was like a 9-minute video, but I put a minute clip of the movie in the thing, and it was just like big laugh for the crowd, or not the crowd, but my classmates and stuff, because I don't think at least half of them had not seen that scene, and when they saw the midgets, walking around the 18 inches of Stonehenge, it was just a giant laugh. So gotta give them credit for helping get an A on that project.
Yeah, so McKeon and Guest kind of started this concept when they met in college in the '60s. They were playing music together. Harry Shearer kind of joined them as well, and they originally were doing a sketch comedy show. That's where Spinal Tap got introduced to the world. So that's fun to note. I also want to point out this is Rob Reiner's first movie, and fittingly enough, Brian Norman Lear gave them $2 million, and that's a really big deal. Norman
I
Lear
saw
probably
that.
best known
Yep.
for producing a lot of incredible TV shows in the '70s, and even into the '80s and '90s. But clearly, that relationship paid off,
A
and
lot of trust. A lot of trust because
it's
he was getting turned down from a lot of places on the money side. And it's a matter of trust when you have that kind of relationship with a producer. So just thank God that you know what I mean? Like sometimes having friends, does help, and in this case it did help. But I think it's just because people at the time didn't know what this was, right? Like how would you describe this? Like the word mockumentary didn't even exist. So
I mean,
like and Michael Moore wasn't even like a big figure at the time. Like
no,
what
Michael Moore's really the
that
one
was
who
like
just
89, I think, for that
yeah, Roger and
documentary,
Me,
Roger and Me. Yeah.
that comedic sensibility for documentary wasn't until a few years later. Yeah, I mean the concept of the mockumentary, you're absolutely right. It was not a thing, and like it's so ubiquitous now. I mean, literally every like you could go back probably for the last 20 years, and there's been some mockumentary either in the movie theater or on TV. And there's like multiple shows at this point. I mean, the mockumentary style, like even the Muppets ended up doing a mockumentary style TV show just to, and that just shows how crazy it all is, right?
Yeah, because like I mean, I wrote my screenwriting class in my first year of college. I wrote a mockumentary. You know what I mean? Like it was supposed to be a 30-page thing, and because like I kept going and going, it ended up like 54 pages, and my professor's like, "You got to stop. I am not reading more than this," and I edited it down. But like, it was very much a mockumentary, and it felt like a pilot that I kind of wrote it as, even though it's supposed to be a short movie. And I don't have a copy of it somewhere, but man, I wish. But I have all these beats in my head because it was all this stuff working at Blockbuster. So just imagine Blockbuster meets Clerks meets Spinal Tap kind of thing. And yeah, that's kind of like a big influence on me in terms of my writing style. Probably comes from a lot of Spinal Tap stuff.
I also want to point out this movie was not a huge hit, but this is definitely a movie that benefited from home video. VHS was starting to become a thing around this time. I mean, started to be a thing a few years earlier, but really people are starting to get the home access. And really, this is like arguably one of the very first hits on home video. Uh, it was released in the Criterion Collection on Laserdisc of all places in 1994. I mean, that's crazy to me. I think we think of Criterion now as kind of a real standard bearer, but to go all the way back to that time and to have a special edition is pretty wild. So a lot of history eventually came out in another Criterion DVD in 1998 as well, and a pretty famous commentary as well. So yeah, this is a very memorable movie, and it's definitely one that a lot of people really, really have embraced.
9 out of 10. I would say that if you can find it, I think it's on YouTube. There was this like MTV live concert special they did in the early 90s, and it was very
It's
much in
crazy to think they.
style. Yeah, it was very much in style of the Spinal Tap, and I forget the title of it, but I remember watching it a long time ago and thinking like this is like a sequel or should be it felt like the sequel in many ways. It wasn't officially the sequel, but if you want to like say that should have been the time to do the sequel, that was it because it was fresh off the whole,
I mean, maybe.
rental thing.
I,
That was the time to do it.
I don't. Yeah. I mean, I think 40 years is too long, and so I think there's a couple of issues with Spinal Tap 2. The end continues. Like, to me, the whole idea is that this band is not really that popular, and just the cameos. That was the most annoying part to me, is because you have Garth Brooks, Questlove, Trisha Yearwood, Elton John, and Paul McCartney. The Elton John and Paul McCartney cameos really felt like they crossed the line for me in terms of like how would they know about their existence, like that it really took me out because it did not seem like they were truly that popular. But this movie wants us to believe that they had a lot more popularity than they did in the original, and that did not work for me.
Well, this is kind of what I think the first movie's missing is all these cameos. Because I think what all these cameos do is kind of like solidifies the universe, right? It actually is like, oh, they are amongst the other celebrities that were around that time. You know what I'm saying? Elton John, Paul McCartney, right? And then you have the Garth Brooks thing with the cameo there too. So it just made it feel like it kind of made the world even more real for them. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like, wow, this Spinal Tap dance just felt more real now because of all these real life interactions and stuff. And
I mean,
there are
I think
stories.
cameos can be effective. I guess I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one.
This is very much the
I
Happy
don't.
Gilmore 2 situation again, I think.
I think
Right?
this
Just
as well. I mean, I don't think that the cameos were effective. I think they were a distraction. And I don't know. I mean, this movie is only an hour and 20 minutes. Obviously,
exact
we
same
don't
length
we
as the
don't have a
first.
lot of
Exact
Christopher
same.
Guest. I mean, it's a little bit shorter, and even I don't know. I think that this is the type of movie that I think is would be very hard to do anyway. I think comedy sequels to me are really difficult to do, but I think that the problem with this movie is the cameos. And look, obviously these guys are really old, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think asking them to be as funny and to keep that timing, like it also did not have that improvisational feel like the first one did. It did feel like they were bouncing off each other. It felt much more like we're gonna do this sketch and this is how the sketch is gonna be. Look, I guess it's felt more scripted, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I kind of got a little bit of that vibe too, but I don't know. It just kind of feels like they're just like so old at this point. It's like, what can you expect? I think the only character that really felt
I mean,
still
just don't do the
authentic.
movie then. Like we went 40 years without doing it. Why
Well,
don't we
it's
didn't
Rob
need
Reiner's
it now?
farewell at this point, so we gotta have to treat it as like a sentimental farewell, I guess. But to me, Christopher
I
Guest was
mean,
the
that's
only
kind
one
of what it
still.
has become now. I mean,
Yeah,
like we're gonna
yeah.
retroactively
Post.
like the thing is like we look at this movie now and we're like, okay, this is Rob Reiner's last movie. So I think people are going to look back at this probably with a lot more fond memories or fond feelings because it's his last movie and we know it's his last movie. and like he literally ended where he started. So I think there's that aspect to it of, how many times do you begin and end with kind of the same thing? And I think there's like that's a very notable thing. It's a very Hollywood thing to happen. And so I think people are going to have more affection for this movie than they would have. Again, even if it's not great, I do think that people are still going to embrace this probably more than they would have if Rob Reiner if Rob Reiner was alive. I mean, and that's an awful thing to say, and it's
I
still
get you. I
terrible.
get you. But for me, like, I still like felt like, oh man, it's like Christopher Guest as Nigel is like he's still. It felt like it was still Nigel, just old Nigel, and how he's responding to the modern world. And I really appreciated those scenes. I just think Harry Shearer's character was just kind of off because they started portraying him as this perv, and I guess he was a perv in the original. He just didn't really like see it that way, or that it was portrayed that way.
I think
But now in
it's
modern
much more
eyes,
noticeable because of how much older he is than he was
yeah. And
when
then
he
the
was
way
playing
he was
the moment,
approaching the
and
drummer, and it was like,
it's
whoa.
real bad.
But
I
I think that's the point, is because to kind of
I
expose
think it
him.
is too. I mean, I just would not have gone there.
It was kind of shocking, to be honest, because then there's this whole thing about Michael McKean thinking that Nigel slept with his wife, but it turns out it was Harry Shearer this whole time. And I was thinking like, are you sure you're not mixing up your friends here? Because I think it's probably the other guy that probably did that. And I was right. I was right about that. So it was kind of a weird plot element that was in the movie, but it is I guess it just represents old friends just kind of getting over old shit because they're just old friends and they just got to get over it, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like just forgive
Well,
and
they
forget.
also feel. I mean, they also continue to feel this obligation to perform, and not just performing by themselves, but like performing with Elton John and Paul McCartney, and that's also really weird as well. Like, why?
I was kind of shocked that they were actually doing live performance with them. I was like, oh yeah, they're actually showing their talent and stuff. And they were actually having like a good musical conversation because like about that part where like hitting the wall in that song they were
I
writing, I
mean,
was
that's
like totally on
probably.
board with that. That was
I
so
mean,
real.
it is definitely a lot better than some of the sketches and stuff. Like those
Yeah, because
conversations felt more organic, I would say.
yeah, organic and really like because I don't know, like I don't write music, but I listen to a lot of music and I know exactly what he's talking about when a song just goes off and does a different kind of like tempo or beat or feel. And then it kind of ruins the song sometimes. And that's exactly what the whole conversation was about that scene in Spinal Tap too. So totally getting into that. And I like the whole drummer kind of avoiding the gig gimmick. And it's not like they don't disrespect the band. It's just they're all scared of dying, which I found really hilarious. Just so funny. And that the one person that takes the gig is like embracing the idea of dying because it's such a legend part of the gig, right? It's like, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die as a member of Spinal Tap kind of thing. So I thought that was like so wild that they took that concept from the first movie and expanded it so much to the point where the person who takes the gig actually embraces dying. So really cool
Yeah,
switch on that. Credit to Elton John. Because this dude like took a bump, right? He took a bump, and God bless his soul, man, because it
it's
looked
a
like he was
really
hurting.
strange ending because it feels like they wanted to kill him, but they didn't.
Let's not kill Elton John on screen, people. Let's just not do that. We're knock
No,
on wood,
I'm
please.
not. Not saying they should, but why tease it?
Well, I think it's this idea of things going wrong for their conflict. Something was bound to go wrong. That was the whole vibe, right? That they were unprepared, they were out of shape. And then the whole clue with the girl moving her set or her drum kit a few feet to the forward and screwing everything up. So in terms of that, I was like, okay, that's a fun setup. And then everything kind of coming to crashing down. Like I guess it was kind of like this metaphorical thing. Instead of like going out on a high note, it kind of went on this down note, which is kind of like a symbol of the band, I guess. I don't know. But I just had fun with it. You know what I mean? Like I smiled. You know, Rob Reiner was like funny in this actually. Like I thought he would kind of like not be as funny as he was in the first, and he
I
still
mean, the
had
thing
that.
is that
Still had it.
Rob Reiner as a director isn't great when you get past a certain point, but he was always a good performer. Like, go and watch Wolf of Wall Street. He's amazing in that movie. Like that, he might give the best performance in that movie. So his acting was always good.
Yeah, I agree, and that's credit to being on one of the top 70 shows of all time.
Yeah,
All in the Family. So he's got the credibility. It's just I didn't expect him to be like so on screen in this movie. I thought he was just going to take a back seat a little bit, but he was on screen right at the beginning, introduced us, and like hooked us in. And I was like, wow, we're like in the same vibes, I
yeah,
guess. You know
we're
what I mean?
going there.
And it had the same vibes to me. And The stuff about the Nigel and the foot pedal is an extension of what is, the guitar collection. I thought that was like a perfect sequel. Like if you're going to do a sequel scene to that scene, that's the way you do it because, again, it's an extension of his musical character, right? To have all these foot pedals, right, and all these different sounds that he doesn't even use, but he just loves to hear. And I get that vibe because I got an uncle that's got like God knows how many drum kits, right? And he's a product of the 60s and 70s, and he was an Elvis kid. He's in his early 80s now, but he's got this massive collection that he just wants to play and just hears different things because he just loves music. So I get that kind of feel. And the idea of trading cheese for a guitar is hilarious. So I got to shout that out.
Going in and running a cheese shop is I'm a little
And I think
jealous,
he's
not gonna
actually
lie.
losing money because I think like half a wheel of cheese is more than most guitars. So that's just my math doing in my head because I was like, how is he, dude? A half a wheel of cheese is like a lot of money, dude. Like compared to a guitar. So
For
yeah, poor
sure.
Nigel. And also the glue. I love the glue metaphor, the glue store metaphor. Like that's such a like deep cut in terms of like life. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
because basically Harry Shearer has opened up a glue store with glues from all over the world that are no longer produced. But he was just like looking around, like what holds things together? Glue. What needs to be held together in a band? Glue holds us together. The metaphorical glue, right? Like. So I was like, oh, that's kind of deep, man, and kind of like philosophical, and that's probably something I'm going to remember like for the rest of my life. So there you go.
Yes. Yeah, I think the first one I'm at about a 7 out of 10. The sequel I'm at about a 4 out of 10. It wasn't completely devoid of value, but it was not. It's I feel like it falls in line with a lot of the types of legacy sequels that I don't think work out as well. I think at times it feels like it's too reliant on the cameos and too reliant on some of the nostalgia as well, which is understandable given like the affection that people have for this movie. But I think the first one had a bit of a harder edge than some of the Christopher Guest movies, and I don't think that this tone met up as well with it. So
Yeah, I
that's where I come
recommend
down.
watch. Yeah, if you're gonna watch the second one, I would watch it immediately after watching the first one, like immediately, the way I did it, because
I think so.
it's so seamless and it just feels natural, and the fact that each one is an hour and 22
It's
minutes, or I guess an hour and
definitely
20,
it's definitely
it'll
an
just feel
HBO
like a
Max.
seamless long movie, right? But it'll feel right because if you watch it with too much distance in between, I think it'll be way less effective. It'll be like, oh my god, I forgot about this and this. But if you watch the first one immediately, it's a perfect setup, and if you time it well, it's still less than like the first Lord of the Rings movie. So, you know what I mean? That's the beauty of some of these comedies is like they could just be an hour 20, 90 minutes and still be memorable. And again, we've talked about this problem. Comedy's doing an hour and 45 nowadays. It only works in some ways. Thank God Naked Gun was able to pass it.
Comedies of 2 hours, man. It is not my jam.
Yeah, well, I think things are changing in terms of that because, yeah, like we mentioned, Naked Gun was a box office success last year, and it was an hour and 43 or something like that. It was just on the cusp of her complaining. You know what I'm saying? But it barely got under the radar for us. So
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. All right, so that is it for this week. For next week, we are going to be ending our look at the mockumentary genre, I guess, and we are going to be talking about another Christopher Guest movie. We're going to be talking about For Your Consideration, which is probably the weakest, but also is the most fitting to end with because it very much is a love letter to Catherine O'Hara. So that's what we got to look forward to next week, Brian. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's just I recently watched this movie again, and it's not the movie that I remember it being. So it's kind of disappointing, but at least Catherine O'Hara's kind of the star of it.
All right. So for Brian, I'm Jerome. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you again next